In keeping with my interest in Baroque dances, I have finally taken it upon myself to discuss another dance included in Baroque instrumental suites, this being the Bourrée. The Bourrée is a musical form or dance form. It's not one that I would say has had the same staying power in musical literature as, say, the gavotte, minuet, or G-cav, beyond perhaps a stylistic echo now and then in music of similar meters. However, for ballet dancers, the Bourrée is still an important concept to grasp to this very day, due to the step associated with the dance, known as the pas de Bourrée. However, this step is agnostic towards meter, meaning it can be danced in either triple, duple, or even quadruple meter. So while it might have its origins in the dance, it does not tell us a huge deal about the Bourrée as it was in a courtly, ballet, or instrumental setting during the Baroque period, which I will endeavor to explain in this video. As with many of the Baroque dances, the Bourrée's origins reach back to a time before the Baroque period. Most seem to point to the origin of the Bourrée as coming from the French region of Auvergne, where it was gleaned off of the characteristic branle of the region. The branle is a generalized term used for line or circle country dances employed across France, where many different branles, with their own respective choreographies, were danced. The word branle stemming from the French verb branler, meaning to sway or wobble. Other contemporary sources of the Baroque period contend that the Bourrée had its origins in the Basque province of Biscay in Spain. So whether the dance comes from Spain or France remains up for debate, with probably no way of proving either without a shadow of a doubt. The etymology of the name Bourrée is also somewhat of a mystery, with some suggesting an Italian or Occitan linguistic origin, such as the Occitan word borrada, meaning to bound or leap, or related words from older Western Romance language dialects. Therefore, the jury is out on this as well. However, by the time of the early Baroque period, the Bourrée had spread to several regions of France as a popular folk dance, which followed the same set of basic steps, albeit with regional varieties and unique flourishes. The Bourrée step, or pas de Bourrée, which corresponds to 3 steps, enables it to be danced plainly in either a triple meter, or if timed differently, it can be achieved in a duple meter. And French folk dances reflected this, as the music of folk bourrées were played either in triple or duple meter. But by the time the Bourrée was adopted into the courtly music of Louis XIV, it was always written or danced in a duple meter. Although most agree that the dance is of a primarily French origin, it might be assumed that the dance was very popular in France. However, outside of any sort of regional folk context, the Bourrée only enjoyed limited popularity among composers in France, as it was not seen as being courtly enough, and therefore dances like the gavotte or minuet were used with far more frequency in stately theater and dance productions. The Bourrée did, however, achieve more popularity in German territories, which is where most of those few Bourrées that remain popular to this day originated. So what defines a Bourrée, musically speaking? Well, first off, the time signature of the Bourrée, as Baroque composers outside of folk music would have understood it, is either written à la brève in 4/4 time or 2/4 time. The main pulse of the dance being duple in nature though, so even if written in quadruple 4/4 time, this would have generally been seen as a metric respelling of à la brève or cut time. However, I would state that the best and most widely used time signature to employ for the Bourrée is à la brève, and therefore each half note should be counted as one pulse. The dance is also characteristically quick, but not too fast. Think allegro or even vivace in tempo, but not presto, and was described as possessing a friendly, lively, and agreeable demeanor by contemporary sources. This now brings us to the rhythm of the Bourrée, which always begins with an upbeat of a quarter beat. Thereafter, it is easiest to convey the Bourrée's rhythm simply as a quarter followed by 2 eighth note beats, generally presented in quick, repetitive succession. Of course, bourrées also rely on a mix of quarter and eighth note beats, but this simple rhythm is the foundation of bourrées, and you will be hard-pressed to find any bourrée that doesn't use this rhythm incessantly. The whole concept of the bourrée is an interplay of eighth notes and quarter notes, constructed over each half-note beat of the measure. So therefore, besides the ubiquitous quarter note and 2 eighth notes rhythm, one can also opt for 2 quarter notes, or 4 eighth notes, or perhaps a half note if a musical phrase is ending, and sometimes a rhythmic retrograde of the standard rhythm with 2 eighth notes followed by a quarter, as seen here in Bach's Bourrée from his Partita for solo violin in E major. Thus, the bourrée should be treated rhythmically very straightforward, without making much use of triplets, dotted notes, or syncopations. That being said, one can make use of dotted notes or syncopation at the beginning or end of musical phrases. This brings us now on how to structure the bourrée, which is done typically in binary form, whereby the A section is generally, if not always, shorter than the B section. If you want more information on Baroque binary form, I discussed this in greater detail in my video on the Allemande many years back. I say bourrées are typically written in binary form. However, if one were to double the bourrée, as in attach a second bourrée after the first bourrée in, say, a suite, as Bach does in his second English suite in A minor, the second bourrée, although an embellishment to the first bourrée, is followed da capo by the first bourrée afterward, leading to something akin to ternary form, somewhat like the minuet and trio or scherzo form. The standard breakdown of musical phrases in the bourrée is done in multiples of 4 bars. So if the A section of a bourrée is, say, 16 bars long, the B section, needing to be longer, would need to be at least 20 bars long. The A section, however, can be much shorter with 8 bars, but this would mean that the B section would have to be at least 12 bars long. Now, most would probably be content in concluding that the bourrée is a dead form with little influence on modernity, but I would contend otherwise, as Bach's Bourrée from his lute suite is a favorite study piece for guitarists, and because of this, it was known by a lot of 20th century rock musicians, even famously showing up in one of Jimmy Page's solos of one of Led Zeppelin's live performances of Heartbreaker. Paul McCartney even stated in an interview once that his famous song, Blackbird, came about while he was fiddling around with that same bourrée. I know I focus on classical music on this channel, but I felt it worthy to mention this because it once again highlights how understanding an old form is not going to stifle you in any way creatively. If a bourrée can give Paul McCartney the impetus for Blackbird, it might elicit something equally interesting or better out of a musician or composer now. And maybe, just maybe, they're watching this video right now. If you enjoyed this video and are also looking for a course to improve your understanding of theory and harmony from the ground up, consider becoming a channel member for exclusive content and lessons.